Right, just me today. Basil is not here, he's busy with life. But I want to talk about HBO's latest series, Last of Us, which is in the UK streaming on Sky Atlantic and Now TV on the app if you have that. In everywhere else is on HBO. Now there's been a lot of chat about this online. I've seen the first two episodes as of today, 28th of Jan. In the UK it comes out every Monday, and I do have some thoughts, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the creators a little bit, because the two creators are Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. Now everybody's talking about Craig Mazin as being the main guy there because he was the creator of Chernobyl, which is fair point. However, it's Neil Druckmann that actually created the game. So let's talk about him a little bit. Now, in an interview for a Hollywood Reporter, which I'm going to link down below, he tells the story about how the idea came about. So in 2004, when he was a student, he had to pitch a zombie story to one of the greatest of horror films, George Romero, in front of him. He had to pitch this idea. George Romero is the creator of the 1968 film Night of the Living Dead, which pretty much started the zombie films. So his idea came from obviously games, first of all. So he was a big fan of a little game called Ico, which was popular at the time on PlayStation 2. And the gameplay, he enjoyed that. There were two characters helping each other going through this fantasy world. And then a little bit of Sin City with the characters from Sin City. So he liked John Hardigan from Sin City. So he melded those two together and came up with this idea of a cop, a hardened cop that had a heart condition, and he meets this girl that goes through, and together they go through this post-apocalyptic world. Now, he pitched that to George Romero. George Romero didn't like it, but the idea stuck with him. And in the following years, he got a job at a gaming company called Naughty Dog. And he was there a co-writer, and this is where he showed his skills as a writer for games. And he wrote on Uncharted 2, I believe it's called Among Thieves, and that was a massive success, and that brought him in a position within the company to pick his next project. And this idea of Last of Us, of the game, of the zombie horror survival story, was with him all the time. So he pitched that got produced, and then we know the story of how Last of Us, how amazingly popular that is and still is. So that launched in 2013, massive success. It was a massive step forward for games, being more immersive, cinematic, feeling like a film more and focused on story. And obviously, Neil Druckmann got pushed up to one of the heads of the studio, Naughty Dog, and now he was thinking about turning this into a film. So initially it was a feature film. He was thinking of doing it. So what happened next is he pitched it to Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi loved it. Sam Raimi is one of another legend of horror films. He did Evil Dead and Drag Me to Hell. So Sam Raimi, the director, came up with some ideas, but because the gameplay is so massive, there's about 15 hours of gameplay in Last of Us, they had to concise that in 2 hours, and the only way, the general consensus was to make it more like World War Z, that type of film with big CGI scenes and action scenes, and it was totally the opposite of what Neil Druckmann was intended to do, with like a character-driven road trip type through a post-apocalyptic scenery. So that project got canned too. And then move the clock forward, comes to 2019, Chernobyl comes out, Neil Druckmann sees it and he loves it, and he sees the look and the feel of what his series would look like. Obviously he got introduced to Craig Mazin. The two of them got together, and that's how they pitched it to HBO. So let's talk about Craig a little bit, because he's also interesting. Okay, so who is Craig Mazin? So Craig Mazin by trade is a writer-producer. Obviously, he's known for Chernobyl because he's created that, and that's a great TV series worth to watch. Actually, we can still see that on Sky or HBO. But also, before that, he was involved in other good big projects. So he's a feature film writer to start with. So he wrote The Huntsman, Winter's War, I believe. This is the second film with Snow White, with Charlize Theron and Emily Blunt and Chris Hemsworth. Then he wrote Identity Thief, and then he was involved in a few big projects. Like at one point he was announced to be developing a reboot for Pirates of the Caribbean with Disney. This was during the Johnny Depp drama, when he got pushed out of the franchise. And also Craig Mazin was attached to write a script for another popular game called Borderlands, which is still in development. We don't know, what a film can be in development for ages, so we don't know where that is going, if it's going anywhere. But if this is successful, I'm sure Borderlands will come next. However, this type of clout, this type of repertoire of good films and good projects and people being interested in him made Craig Mazin quite an important figure. And once he won for Chernobyl Best Writing, and then that got 10 Emmys for Best Limited Series, for Best Cinematography, for on and on and on. So that was a big success. Once that happened, HBO wanted him on board, and they signed a first look deal, which is basically the studio will get a first look on any projects that Craig Mazin would want to create. So that's what happened with him and HBO after Chernobyl. And obviously, when Last of Us came to him via Neil Druckmann, and they had a meeting and they got along really well, he went straight to HBO to pitch it to the head of development heads, and they said this is the project. He was really passionate about it, and he really liked it. So when they pitched it, it was right there and then that they said, we want you to make it. Where's the contract? Where do we sign? So that's how easy it was for him to pitch that and get that signed off. Now, after the pitch, there is a quote from one of the heads of development at HBO. Actually, I'm going to read this to you because it's interesting. HBO actually said, "My mind wasn't on whether the video game adaptations in the past have failed. I approached this as, is it a great TV show? And I loved 28 Days Later," which is true, which is good. So the idea that Craig Mazin wanted to do a big genre show was not a hard sell for me. And that is what we got. So let's finally talk a little bit about the first two episodes. Right, so in general, I tend to look at the first two episodes of any TV series these days and make a judgment based on that if I want to watch it until the end or drop it after the first two episodes. Sometimes even one episode is enough. But based on these first two episodes of this show, would I recommend it? Absolutely yes. This is a show that, yes, it is a genre, it is a zombie genre with a little bit of a twist, but it is focused on characters, and those two characters are very rich, they're very well polished, very well built, have a lot of backstory that we don't know of yet. They're very well played by Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, as we know, the two main characters. And it does surprise, it does have the witty dialogue, it does, portray those type of people correctly, like the spoiled teenager that doesn't take her reality very well, at least from the first two episodes, which is Ellie in the show. And then you can see Pedro Pascal's character being the John Hartigan with a soft touch, as intended back in the day by Neil Druckmann, like we said, John Hartigan from Sin City. But this is one of those shows that it feels like you're in good hands. So you can see the production values are up there, you can see the acting is up there, but it's one of those shows that, as I mentioned in one of our other episodes, is you're in front of something, you're watching something good when every single scene, every sequence in an episode or a film impresses with something. So you can have good acting in this first scene, then the next scene is good set design, or the next one is something in the costumes, or the environment attracts you, is looking good, is well created. Then the next one is the music, or the next one is the CGI, and so on and so on. And an hour of an episode just flies by because you're always impressed with something always picks up your interest and keeps you going, keeps you watching. And this is one that type of show. Now, hopefully it's going to keep up until episode 9, because, or even raise the game. That'll be even better, because it's really good. And obviously, I will come back with another review after the next 2 episodes. So at the end of episode 4, every Monday there's a new episode here. I'm sure it's going to impress, because we're in good hands, like I said. And if you want to watch that next one, just hit that subscribe button or join in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the first 2 episodes so far. No spoilers, please, because I'm trying to keep that away. Yeah, let me know what you thought. And until next time, enjoy it, and have a good one.